In the dark where the strange things flicker, Jennifer Hicks takes you in a little deeper.
Cryptids, UFOs, stories that chill, the truth's out there, and she's got the thrill. Welcome to Creepy Culture, where the unknown comes alive.
Hi, welcome to Creepy Culture. It's Jen, and tonight I have a very special guest, Donna Copas, and she is a Shawnee Native here in Ohio, and she has grown up all her life with what they call the Watchers, which are Bigfoot. So I'm going to bring Donna on out. Hi, Donna.
Hi.
How are you doing? Okay.
Doing good. Thank you for having me. Appreciate it.
Thank you for being here. I'm so excited. You know, I see you all the time on Monsters Unleashed, but I've been dying to hear about how you grew up with the Watchers like this. I think it's so cool, and it's a whole different perspective on them, you know, other than going out Bigfoot hunting or whatever. So you could just talk about whatever you want. You can go ahead whenever you're ready.
Okay. Well, like I said, I'm not a researcher. I'm just kind of a liver. I'm of Shawnee descent. My native name, I'm Shawnee, and it is Wabi Ayapia Tamponia. I am the White Wolf Woman. And the Watchers has been part of my life, my whole life. As my dad before, you know, he was like 3 when he started interacting. My grandmother before that. All of mine go, I can trace all the way back, the stories back to the 1700s, through the family. But my first, I usually start out with my first interaction was I was 6, and there was a fair in town, and I wanted to go to the fair. Of course, my dad was a hunter and a trapper. He dug roots. That, you know, we lived on a 300-acre farm that had 11-acre berry patch, the orchards, everything we needed came from our land. And but Dad had rules, you know. Anything you wanted, you had to work for. You didn't just get it give to you. I was 6, but I had chores that I had to do, and I wanted to go to that county fair. So he tells me, okay, well, there's patch yellow root out here. I'll take you out here, and you can dig that, and you can have that money for the fair. And of course, being a kid, you know, I'm all happy. And that morning, I had drove the poor man crazy. You know, like, go, you know, wanting to go. And so I had to go to the barn. I had to do my chores first. I had to like feed the chickens, and we had this old setting hen. And I don't know if you know anything about setting hens or not, but they would literally eat you alive. I mean, they'll peck you to pieces.
I'm scared of chickens.
Well, I had to gather the eggs, so I have to skirt around that, you know, and I did that. Then I had to go feed the calves. We had feeder calves, so I had to go put the feed out for them. And I was all happy, so we always had the feed sacks, the old burlap feed sacks, which the cow feed came in. So I grabbed a couple of them and grabbed the mattock and then back into the house, and poor Dad, he's trying to finish his coffee. He's at the kitchen table, and I'm jumping in his lap and blah, 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 you know. And finally, he just kind of, you know, Dad, I was a terrible spoiled child. And he just ruffled my hair. I had really long hair. My grandma would braid it up. And he ruffled my hair. He's like, all right, come on, let's go. So we went off down through the field, and then we went back into the cliffs. It's pretty deep country, and there's a big patch of yellow root back there. So we sat there and was digging the roots, and what Dad was doing most digging. I was cleaning it. You got to take and separate the roots from the top, and they're sold separate. So the tops are like the leaves. They go in one bag and the roots in the other. So I've been doing that, and then Dad chewed tobacco. Of course, we raised tobacco. We had a tobacco farm too, you know. And he would go to the barn and get the long green. It's just unprocessed tobacco. And he took that out of the top of his bibs, and he walked over. There was a stump close by where we were digging. And he laid the tobacco up on that stump, and he said, now, come on, Duke, we're going to go. never call me Donna, or either call me Donnie Hen or Dookie. And of course, I'm grumbling, I don't want to leave because I want to, that's my money for the fair. He said, and then he got the dad voice, and he's like, "Nah, come on." I said, "We're going to go." So he reached down, got those bags and picked up stuff, got me by the hand. We started walking away. And as we walked away, I just looked back, and there was by that stump where, not 30 feet from where I had literally been sitting, in that patch, this huge black figure stood up, like 8 foot tall. It looks like a mountain to me. Of course, I'm little, I'm scared, and I'm like pulling on his hand, and he's like, kind of shook my hand, like, like, "Oh, it's all right now." He said, "You leave him alone. He'll leave you." He's just watching us. He's doing. So that was my first experience of seeing one, and from then on, that was Dad's way of introducing me that day, because I ran the woods. I was little, but I'd go to the barn, get the pony, go to the woods. I played in the woods. I was always out there. And of course, back then, nobody bothered you. We had this is ours that's going around, and, except for the animals, the animals. Um, so from then on, that was my beginning of him showing me, you know, the different, like the rocks. They stack the rocks, and there's the markers. That, and he explained certain ways they're stacked. That means that it's safe for them to be there. They're staying here. They have different ways of doing things to basically say it's okay. It's like with
Hold on, Donna. You're coming through muffled.
uh, it's probably my internet.
Well, now I can hear you fine. Okay.
All right.
Go ahead. I'm sorry.
Okay. But that was my first interaction, and just went on from there. I grew up on the farm. They were there, and Dad, he taught me the gifting. He also taught me to be respectful, be cautious, don't be stupid, don't do stupid things, because just like anything else, there's good and bad. And just because, some days, we get up and we're having a bad day, something went wrong. And so we're having a bad day and we're grumpy. They're the same way. So you have to be very, figure out. And it's not like I went out and played with them, or they were around. They just became part of my life. And then, the old lores and legends, Dad told me those, and they were handed down of what they were. And he explained, like he was told from a child, because he said he was 3. Dad was born 1927 in an old cabin back in the woods. And there's, when I say back in the woods, this is literally back under a mountain, and there's no neighbors. Of course, there's no running water. Water comes from springs, and they lived off of the land, basically. What they hunted for. They grew their gardens and that kind of stuff. That's how Dad was raised. And he said he was like 3 or somewhere around then. He was little, and he had to go to the bathroom. And he said that he called his mom ma'am. He never called her mom or whatever. He called her ma'am. And he said, "Ma'am took me out." And of course, they had the outhouse, And instead of taking him all the way to the outhouse, she just took him to the edge of the yard to go to the bathroom. And he said, there behind him, this big, huge, just like with me, this huge figure stood up behind him. And of course, he's like, it scared me to death. He's like, it scared me. But said, "Ma'am just walked over," and said she picked me up in her arms, and said she put her hand up, and she said, "No, my baby." And he's like, it just walked up through the woods back, just like I said, this is deep woods. I still live in pretty deep country, but, not considered where he grew up. I'm in a city considered where he grew up. And he said it wasn't nothing. She told him, first time she had saw him, and of course my grandma gathered um, like greens. You go out and you collect the plants you can eat, and the green onions and the Shawnee lettuce, and just different. There's stuff out there. It's food. You just cook it. And he said she liked green onions. The wild green onions. And there was a place where they grew plentiful, I guess. And he said it was nothing at all to see her like on one side uh, getting the onions, and on the other side there would be a watcher. They're getting them from the other side, and so they interacted. In the berry patches or whatever, they would be together. And but again, he was very very thorough on saying, you always pay attention. You don't do anything stupid. You don't challenge them. That was a big thing. And also, one of the biggest lessons I had to learn was control of my emotions, my fear, my anger. I have a terrible temper, and that was one of the things I had. That was very forcefully. My dad never gave me a spanking in my life ever. He told me. My mom would put the switch to you, and my grandma would, but Dad never. That was just his way. You don't do that, and you mind what you're told. So,
Right.
There was a lot of hard lessons learned, because you can imagine growing up and to learn not to be afraid, because, I was afraid to begin with, because you see these massive things. It's not bad. I've had a couple experiences, but that was later, just in the last couple of years. And I don't blame them. It was more, they were reacting to something that somebody else had done. And I just happened to be the unlucky person that got in between. And so I've seen, like Dad was on the farm. I didn't move him from the farm until he was 84. I brought Mom over. She got sick earlier, and I put a mobile home in my front yard. And my home, I bought vacant ground. So when I built my home, my whole bedroom was just glass walls. I wanted the big plate glass windows, because I like, and I'm under I'm in the woods. My water comes from springs. I have a creek beside me. I'm still that way. But Dad, I brought him over, and he was I came out my door and then into the mobile home where he lived. But it was a short time after I moved him in, and I would leave my bedroom door open. I put my windows up, and I had an old time screen door. It didn't have glass in it. It's like the old time screen, just screen.
Right.
And I didn't have to have air conditioning or anything, because the breeze just blew through under the trees and from the water. But the first night I got woke up. It was like 3:00 in the morning, and I got woke up, and I smelled the really bad smell. I'm like, oh my gosh, my septic blew up. That's how bad it was. And I couldn't find anything, so I went back to bed, and I didn't see anything that night. The second night, by that big glass window, because when I tell you my bedroom was all glass, it was all glass. It's just these, there's small portions of wall, but there's a door, big window, big plate glass window. There's a wall, and the other side is a big window. And by my bedroom door, that big window there, I seen like a black shape there by the window. And my first thought was, because we have bear, we have coyote, we have bobcat. And I thought, oh crap, that's a bear, So I closed my door that night. The third night, again, I got woke up. But I didn't see it. I sensed it. And I would go at midnight to put Dad to bed. And I had a big cedar tree. I had a spring at the end of my house, and there's a big cedar tree I'd left for shade in the yard. And of course, where I live, I'm down in a valley. So there's cliffs and woods are all around me. And I came down. He wouldn't go to bed till midnight after the news, his routine. And I got halfway in between, and I carry a pistol because I am basically in the woods.
Mhm.
I seen that move behind the tree, and I smelt the waft on the air. It came down, and again, I'm thinking in my mind, I thought, oh gosh, it's a bear. It's a bear. So of course, my dad's a hunter. I've taught, I hunt with him or whatever. You don't ever run because if you run, then you become prey. So you move quietly and slowly, and that's what I did. I got inside the house. And Dad laughed at me. He said, "What in the world's wrong with you? You done lost your mind or what? You going crazy?" I was like, "Dad, there's a bear out there." I said, I said, show me. Of course, he didn't walk very good. He had the stroke. So I helped him to the door. And he looked out and he goes, He said, "He's just watching." He said, "He ain't here to hurt nothing." And it clicked in my head because as a child, I grew up doing all this. And I hadn't had much at this location. I hadn't had interactions here until Dad came. And I was like, oh, you don't mean. He's like, "Yeah." He said, "He's just watching." He said, "He's just watching." And he would come every night and stand at that tree. And I'm telling you, I call him the old one now because he's massive. He's huge. And he would just stand there and watch while I come down, put Dad to bed. And that went on. It was probably about 3 months. And again, I'd put Dad to bed. It's like 3 o'clock in the morning. And I get woken up by these horrible screams, like fighting. It's like an elephant trumpeting and growl. I'd never heard that kind of violent screams before. And so me being me, I'm a widow, so I'm used to going out by myself or whatever. So I keep a gun at the front door, but I didn't get the gun. I go out barefooted in my nightgown, and Dad had one pig left, and I'd moved her over, which is now a full-grown hog, and her pen was down by the creek because I'm back up in the woods, and you have to travel down. And I got down there to her pen, and I still hear that in the hillsides, like the screaming, and it's fairly close to me. And then in my mind, it's like, "Oh, you dummy, you're out. Nobody knows you're out here. Dad can't come out to help you. He can't walk, and you don't even have a gun. You're dumb. Get back to the house." And so I head back up to the house, and I still hear that crashing down through there, and I heard it go sound like it went through the pig pen, and then you cross creek, and then the chicken coops are on the other side, and I hear just all the way down through there scream, scream, and Dad had, when I moved him, he had his old dog, which was outside dog, Jake, that was his name. He was a pit bull mass mix, so you know how big of a dog he was, but he was old. And then I heard him scream. I heard Jake scream, and I'm, this awful. And my first instinct is you're going to go to help. That I couldn't go out the door. It was like something physically held me. I could not go out. And I heard, I'm listening to them screams, and it moved over. And when you get over, you go down the road, and there's an older lady that lived on down a few miles below me. And I guess she called the cops. So the cops come out, and, he's telling me, "Oh, you just heard a coyote." And I was like, "Oh, whatever you say. I'm not going to argue about it." And I didn't want to argue, but really I didn't want them around. But all the way up through there, it traveled miles up that road. And all the way up through there, it was like attacking dogs. And it ended up back, there's a 400-acre tract of woods back there, which is Shawnee land. And it's also their homeland. It's the Watchers' homeland, which hasn't been touched, has not been touched in over 200 years. No logging, nothing's back there. It's vacant. And but that's where he ended up at, back in there. So the next day, I found the dog the next day. He was still alive, amazingly. He was alive, but like through his hindquarters and private areas, He'd been bit. It was like it literally picked him up and bit. And you can imagine the size of this dog, so you know how big of a bite that had to be to go through there.
Yeah.
Uh, um, but what kind of got me, this was in like 1994, so this is a long time ago. Um, and I never even thought about it till I discuss things with different people that I've met. Um, I only started telling my stories a couple years ago. I got permission from the elders to share it because we're having so much of our timber coming down, and the watchers' homelands are coming down, so they're moving out, and more people are seeing them. There's more interactions, so we kind of decided whether anybody wants to believe it or not. That's absolutely up to them. I respect everybody in that way. The naysayers or whatever. I'm not here to prove anything to anybody. I know what I know. I don't ask you to believe me. It's just kind of like a cautious thing. We decided it would be a good idea. But I talked about what happened that night, and one of the gentlemen that I talked, he's like, "Do you think that was your dad's watcher? But do you think maybe that was a dog man that they were fighting and it attacked the dog?"
Oh, wow.
And I'm like, I never thought about it because honestly, up until about 2 years ago, I never saw a dog man. I questioned whether they, were real. The watchers, yes, I see them, interact with them. I kind of say like, when I was little, the old ones were, those were the elders then. And I grew up with the generation that grew up with me are now older like I am. But their children, the watchers' children grew up seeing me. So we kind of, have this little, I don't go out and play ball with them. Or I have my routine. I do the gifting, which I've gotten things back that way. Um, the dog man thing was, I questioned that. And then I had a sighting a couple years ago, and it wasn't even here. I was doing a hike with another girl that she'd take me to a new area. It wasn't even my area. It's not even around here. It was hers. And we did like a 6 mile hike back in. There's three of us, and just, had a great day, had fun. There was a big old hollow log. We got it, a tree stump. We got it, just goofing off. There was a lot of sign there that we did see, and I found a couple of footprints. But on the way out, there was one way in and one way out, and you had to come back down that trail to get back to the parking lot where the car was. And as we was coming down through there at the end of the day, it wasn't dark, but it was getting evening time. I thought it was a big tom turkey. I could see a big black figure at the end. And I even said, "What is that?" So we're looking at it, and we can't, I didn't have a phone with me. I don't take a phone with me because normally they don't work anyway. And she had a good phone with a good camera. So she said, "I can't get," she tried to take a picture. She couldn't get it. She couldn't get it to focus in. And we just kept moving. And the farther we went, the bigger it got. And now we're getting really concerned, because I could see it had a head like a German Shepherd head, but it was big. And because we talked about it, she's like, "Oh gosh, I hope they didn't, somebody didn't throw a dog out, it's because this is, people do that." And we just kind of talked about that. And I carry a 380 with me, and I pull my pouch around. I have extra clips and all that, and I kind of shove my hand down in there, and I have a walking staff that I carry with me. Well, she was looking for a stick. She's like, "I'm getting a little scared about this," and so she found not a real big stick, but she found a stick. But the third girl, she's like, "What is that?" She's seeing it too, and she's getting scared. And by that time, there was a doe on the right-hand side, and she jumped up and ran off to the right through the woods. But all the time now we're seeing this, it's on the ground. It's on all fours. And it's tracking, like back, how a dog will put the nose to the ground and it's tracking back and forth, back and forth. And we're still, it's like, oh my gosh, what is that? Because we have to pass it. We have to go there. And we got closer. And then finally, what got me was it came up onto two legs.
Ooh.
And it's like, it's got the head, and its body is man-sized body. And it went off into the woods on two legs. And still in my mind, I'm thinking, okay, well, maybe somebody's playing with a dog and just getting it to jump up. You try to rationalize in your head.
Mm-hmm.
But when we get, there's not a sound, there's not a bug, there's not a bird, nothing. There is just stone silence. And every hair on the back of my neck is up. I'm on full alert. And it was like a horror movie, because we get up there. And I have my daughter's new car, so I'm trying to unlock the door, right? It won't work. The key fob is dead. It won't work. So I have to unlock it by hand, which can be infuriating with a new car, because you got to get through this rigmarole.
Yeah.
And by this time, the other girl, she's like, I got to pee. I was like, I don't care where you pee at. Just pee wherever you want to. I'm getting in the car and I'm closing the door. But it was, you can imagine, you're trying. And yeah, I never felt that kind of, with the watchers, I'm cautious. They don't frighten me, but that was an eye opener that day. I'm like, because I always question, do they really exist? What are they? Or with the story, the Shawnee legend is, well, like with the Watchers, they say the Moon-Eyed people came. They had children with the Shawnee. The Watchers did not have children with the Shawnee. The Moon-Eyed people, which is like another race of people, is the way I look at. And they left the Watchers behind. They are their protectors. They are there to watch over their children. And so that's how I've been taught. It's like they're here to protect us, to watch over us. Are some of them evil? I've heard stories of them turning. Also, the way I know is your watcher imprints upon you, and they're kind of like an extension of you. You're part of the same thing. So if you are bad, then it would make sense that your watcher would also not be good either. If you did evil things, I'm sure that's kind of the way it works. So I rationalize everything. I think about everything, and I pick it apart. Even over my lifetime, the things I've seen and done. I was 12, and I would go down. There was a creek there, and I'd ride the pony down, and I would lay there in that creek. There's little waterfalls, and then in the bottom of the creek, the creek was only maybe 10, 12 inches deep, but on the bottom was blue clay, so it's smooth. And I would lay there in that water, because we didn't have air conditioner. We was lucky we had a fan. This is a
Right.
country house.
Mhm.
And in the summertime, it's hot, so I would go there, like a kid playing. And the first time that I saw them, I would know they were in the forest around me, because it was deep. This is the woods. And I had real long hair, and my grandma would braid my hair, and she would tear strips of cloth and wrap that into my hair, because I would get cuckleburrs in my hair and sticks, all this stuff. And she would do that to wrap it down. And as soon as I got to that creek, being a kid, first thing you're going to do, I take it down, and I would lay them up on that rock. And then before I go home, I would half-heartedly put it back into my hair so I didn't get in trouble. But I fell asleep. When I woke up, I look up and they're gone. So my first thing was, I got two older brothers who like to, how brothers are, they like to torture you. And of course, they're a little bit old, quite a bit older than I am. And I thought, oh man, they're going to get me a switching for sure. But then it was evening time, and the shadows was coming down through the cedars. There's cedar grove, and it wasn't dark, but the shadows was pretty deep. And I see those strings of the colors going up through, and I see the shape, and I was like, oh okay. He took my ribbons. But me being, nothing kept me out of my woods. That's my playground. That's my life. That's just who I am. So the next day I go back, and where he'd taken those from, he left me some rocks and an arrowhead, or it's an arrow straightener. It's a Shawnee. I sent you a picture. It's a hole. It's a rock with a hole in the middle, and they use that to straighten the arrow because we still do it. We still create them. My son naps the flint, and we still create them. And I thought that was pretty cool because he took my ribbons, but he gave those back. But I would go there, and then there was another time. They have the ability, for me, I don't know if this works for everybody else or whether it's just, I'm sure I'm not the only one, but they put me to sleep. They have the ability to do, and I was actually, I was moved. I would lay in that creek, and when I woke up, now I wasn't harmed, I wasn't scratched, I wasn't molested, I wasn't nothing, nothing was harmful done to me. I did lose time, and I had been picked up, physically picked up, and moved up onto where that it's a big flat stone, and I was laid up there. And now I'm not the kind of person that you can walk up on. If I'm even from childhood, I'll come awake instantly. That's I didn't wake up. I was moved. I was picked up and moved, and I didn't wake up, which is and even now, I like I said, I do gifting. I have an old tobacco barn that I bake my cakes, and I take other things, but my the cake thing is from my grandma. I make homemade apple cakes, and that was a hand me down from her, and so I do that, and then I will take them there. Then I have different caves and different areas that I go to. But sometimes, I got the one place I'll just sit down and I'll automatically go to sleep. It's like, I think it's their way of interacting with me. I, I don't really dream or anything like that. It's just like this complete calmness, just a sense of peace, that kind of thing. So, it's like I call it the shimmer. They can be right in front of you, and it's not that they're not there. You don't see them. If you're meant to see them, you'll see them. They don't want you to see them, you won't see them. It's not that they're not there. I've seen them step out and then simply step back and turn, and it'll just be a shimmer. And then I know they're there because I can feel them, because I sense them. I know I have this, I guess, over the years, I've developed our own way of communicating with each other. I feel their emotions, they feel mine. Um, so I know when they're there. I feel them. I know they're there. And um, I don't know where they go. I haven't figured that part out. I do know that their fur, I had found this, which I'm not sure that that's what it is. I found that big bunch of hair. The only thing I can tell you about that hair is I took it to a taxidermist, and he's like, "Yeah, it's definitely hair. It's not human hair." I don't know what kind of animal it is because I've never seen anything like it. He said the closest I could tell you would be like a beefalo or buffalo, but their hair wouldn't be that long because this hair is literally 6 foot long, and it's about 2 feet wide, and it's different colors. It has different colors in it. The thing about it was, when it was wet, I brought it in. There's a waterfalls, and we found a lot of different artifacts there. That's where we found that stone. It's a petrified hand, foot, whatever. You can see. I don't know if I ever showed it to you. Did I ever show you? You can see the nails, and I don't think I sent it to you. This is, it's, it's about, it's pretty good size. And in that waterfalls, we found different things. And that's where I found the hair. Me and my son were hiking through there, and it's sticking up out. There's like sand and just foliage, and And he started pulling it, as he started pulling it up, I'm like, crap, that's hair. And then I'm thinking, what the heck? And after he had pulled, there was more left out. I was like, stop, stop, stop. Because whatever it is, we're messing up. If there is DNA there, we're contaminating it. So let's stop. And I brought it home in a backpack, and then I put it in. I have in a big plastic container. And the thing about it was that I found odd. It was wet, right? Because it was there in the water. So when I brought it home, I draped it over a metal chair, and I took a picture of it. So I got a picture. The next morning, I'd left it there, so it dried out overnight. And I thought, I'm going to lay it out on my couch to the full length so I can get the full, how. Could not take a picture. It would not work. I could take a picture of the camera, the phone, anything else in the house. Could not take a picture of that. Don't ask. I don't know why. I've never figured that out. However, if it's wet, you can get a picture. If it's dry, you cannot. So somebody with more brains than me would have to figure that out. I don't know what that means because I've never found anything like that before. But there's a lot of different. I'm still learning in all these years. I'm still learning, and they're still teaching me. So, in my lifetime, I've had a lot of different. I still have interactions with them. My dad passed away, and he would be over 100, but his watcher is still here. I kind of laugh because I say he's down to 3 toes now. He had lost last year or a couple of years. I got that footprint that I sent you, and he was at 4, and I know it's him because he is white. He was. I think they're like us, as they get older, their fur they turn white, like our hair gets white. They change. There's also there's different colors. There's the dark, more black, the reddish brown, tan. Well, I have one he's tan. He's not, but he's young. He's not old. So that's um, Dad always said, they have their clans, like the Shawnee have their clans. We have different names for our clans. Like there's the deer and the wolf and the bear and the mud puppy and the raven. That there's different clans. Each one has a different symbol. And that's what he said. He's like, they have their own clans, their own family groups, and they have their own markers. Like we have our own symbols for our clan, our little effigy type things. And so they use the stones. I actually talked to Trish about this. It was a while back. There was a group there at the LBL, and she had sent me a thing, and she's like, did you ever see anything like this? It was different shaped stones laid out. And I was like, yeah, because they use those as markers. They will count, like you have a group of people come in, and they use different shaped stones. It's like what she had shown me, I think there was 2 women and 4 men. And she said, how do you know? I said, because of the shapes of the stones. They mark different shaped stone for a female than the male. And then they will lay it out, and they usually put it into the direction that they're moving, because it passes along. Like there's a group in here, and this is how many females or whatever.
Oh,
They're
wow.
very intelligent. I mean, people think these are just dumb animals, or they're not. They are very intelligent. They have different ways. So I've just seen a lot of different things. I do see the orbs. People talk about the orbs, and whenever they see them, yeah, I see the orbs. I've seen some the blue. The blue. I've seen the white. I guess it's just to me, it's just kind of natural type thing, and cautious, yes, definitely cautious, but I have the one he's hanging around that one picture I sent you of
Mhm.
that face in the window. I in my little bathroom, I took a small bedroom, and I turned it into a bathroom, and the window is just slides back where you could actually step out, and right behind it is the creek. I mean, the woods are right there, and that that night I was actually listening to a podcast, and Mike Miller was on the podcast, and he has some really great vocals from here, and they had played those vocals, and I was carrying the phone. I went back. I have my dryer, my washer and dryers in there, and I will take my dryer vent off in the wintertime because I put it down in there, and it serves as a heat source. You know, the heat from the dryer. I put that down in there. There's no lint; it goes in the bucket. So I hadn't refixed that, so I had the window open because it was like springtime. It was getting warm. And when I walk back here, I go, oh man, I forgot to close that window. And the creek's there, so the mosquitoes are going to come in or whatever. And I stepped to the window and I got the wet dog smell. And I'm thinking, oh man, it's probably coyotes moving down. For some reason, I had the phone in my hand, so I just stuck it out the window. There's no screen, no, it's open, so it's just open air. And I snapped 2 pictures, just thinking I'll get a coyote or whatever. And the next day, I didn't even look at it till next day because I came back in, listened to the rest of his podcast, and then the next morning I was going through, and that face, it had to be within 10 feet of my hand.
Oh,
That's how close he was. He's a young one, and he's very curious. I In my living room, my granddaughter was spending the summer with me after school was out, which she was 7 then. And I have a real soft fur rug in the living room, and she likes to lay on that and watch TV or whatever, and she'll fall asleep there. She just, sleeping there. So I went to bed. It was like 3 o'clock in the morning, and she comes and said, "Mama, Mama, there's something scary looking in the window at me." And I come in, and she'd actually took the cushion off of the couch and put it into the window. And I thought, she'd just been a kid, or whatever. I never thought about. But no, he comes. He likes that window. Actually, I had did shows. I think it was with Mike and Trish when he
mhm.
actually threw and hit the back of the house. But it's
I
right.
was on that.
Yeah, oh yeah. He's like
Mhm.
that window. It's like I set. It's just really right here. And I was
Mhm.
like, I don't know if he's trying to get my attention or or he's trying to hit me in the head. I don't know. But
Oh, I thought he
he,
was knocking on the window. Did he throw something at it?
it was actually threw. It was like a piece of off a tree limb, and he
Mm.
threw it, and it hit. But he'll throw rocks. He don't throw real big rocks. He's also been on the roof because I bought the Amish cabins, like the high barns, and I turned because my big house burnt, and
Mhm.
I put these in. And right here on the creek bank, I only have maybe between the back of my house and that creek bank is probably about 10 feet. It's literally right there on the creek. But he will get in that tree. There's a big giant tree there. And he's actually been on my roof to the point that uh, because these are the Amish, so I have a loft area, but it's a short loft. And I can actually see my ceiling. Boop, boop. I was like, please get off my roof before you break my roof. Get off, because that's a lot of weight. But he's been very active and very curious. So I've not had anything harmful happen. It's just kind of like a kid sometimes playing pranks or whatever. But
Mhm. I
so
have some of those pictures you sent me, and I can show them, and you can say what they are if you would like.
okay.
So, where's the rock picture? Okay, so I have these.
Yeah, those are my artifacts. You see the rocks with the round hole that goes all the way through.
Uh huh.
Those are arrow straighteners. The other ones are paint pots, the ones that has the bottom in. And then the face effigies, it's like I talk about the moon-eyed people. You see the faces there. Those are handed down. I've had those. Those are from generation to generation, all the way back to the late 1700s. There's a bird pipe there. That's what that one is. Um, so this is things, that one in the white one in the center, there's like the round one, and then that white one in the center with the hole. That's actually the one that he left me on the stone when I was a child. So everything symbolizes something. Um, the my dad, those, he had them. Then they were given to me, and before that was his dad and his mom and his grandpa.
Then those are really cool.
Yeah, they're real. They're real.
I don't know what this picture is.
That is that face. That's the face. If you look, you can see the chin, the mouth, the nose, the eyes, and kind of like the neck area right here. That's the picture of him basically at my back window.
Right. He likes that window.
Uh,
And then I got this print.
yeah, that is from a couple years ago in the creek. Um, Everybody's like, why is there just one footprint? There's not. But that is a creek, and that's the bank of the creek where there's like sand and the mud. And there's like turtles in there, like little turtles and crawdads and fish, minnows, that kind of stuff. They eat, there's a berry patch on the side of the bank beside that. And they get in there, and I had went up around my greenhouse, and I looked down, and I took the pictures of the footprint, and then I cast the footprints. But he had walked down the creek. There was two of them. The one is about 15 long and right at 6 wide or something like that. But then there's a smaller one. Yeah. So
Yeah.
they get in there, and that's where my old house sat. Because mine is literally set back up in the woods, and right there is so you can. It wasn't just one footprint. There was there was a where they walked.
And then that one, and then there's this one.
Yeah, that's the big one. So,
And then I have this picture too.
yeah, that's one of the tree shelter things. That is from a different area. I have two of those. Well, I have more than that, but if you look at those, it's like I had some guy tell me, the Boy Scouts did that. Those are probably 35 feet long, and they're laid together. Those aren't growing like that. They're individually. It's not like they fell over, in a windstorm or whatever. I I honestly, Dad said, it's kind of like a marker thing. He didn't know. He couldn't really explain to me what they used them for.
Mhm.
That kind of thing. He's like, I see them. He has seen them under them. He also said that he saw like um, like a white light that came down. Uh, you know,
Hmm.
Now there is an area. It's a ceremonial site, and which I still do. I do different. I still do different ceremonials. There's like the rebirths or naming ceremonies, that kind of thing. I still travel there and do that. Just with certain people. But once I finish, it's the tradition is to walk the path, and if everything goes right for you, you walk that path, and you will. It's just on top of a mountain, basically, and you go around through, and you'll end up in a grove. But all the way around through there, um, this is kind of like old Shawnee thing. Um, the lizards will follow you. You have all of these things that collect. That's like your spirit animal type thing, and they're protectors, and they travel with you. And once you get to that grove, though, when you're in the center of it, you look up and it's just like this round in this grove, and it's like you go into a different dimension. And usually you'll just fall asleep, and that's where you'll get your dreams, your recognition, your guidance. Your guide has come, and so those are in that area. There's some around in that area. So I know it all has to do with the Shawnee heritage and the things that goes with it. But do I think Boy Scouts went out there and made that? No, I do not think Boy Scouts went out there and made
Mhm.
that, because first off, it is private land and nobody is in there. And I don't think, and if that is Boy Scouts lifting those and carrying them, they have to be pretty big Boy Scouts. So,
Right. Um,
it's,
and you think those are markers? That's what
yeah,
you've been
yeah,
taught they are?
yeah. That's, he's like, they use it to symbolize their area and uh, what's safe and what's not safe. But he said they use them, but Dad was he's an old country farmer and trapper and everything. So um, I guess he never thought about like the more modern type thinking, that kind of thing. His was just basically accepting them for what they were and what they meant to him and what they did for him, and just living with them. I do the same thing. I do question more, because I kind of like to reason things out in my head and kind of, you know, I think about the stories that they've told me and I try to pick them apart, kind of like the
Mhm.
Dogman thing.
Mhm.
They said the Dogmen were created because way back there was the shaman, the medicine men. Some of them had turned bad and they were doing bad things, which means because their watchers are a part of them and they're imprinted in them, they turned bad too. And so they were doing bad things. They were coming and stealing the women and the children and hurting people and doing all this stuff. And of course, no human man is physically capable of defeating a watcher. You can't go out. And back then, you got to realize you would be fighting with flint and club. You're not got a weapon. You're not shooting something. All you have is a knife that you've created, and that's basically from bones or flint rock.
Yeah.
So the story is, the dogmen were created by the good um, medicine men, the shaman, um, to battle them and drive them back underground where they would trap them and contain them, because they couldn't destroy them, but they could trap them. That was what I understood with the ceremonial type. And then I thought in my mind, I was like, okay, is it really a creature they created, or did they? Because like my grandma used all kind of herbs, and you go out to the woods and you collect the herbs, the plants, all that kind of stuff. And you know, some of this stuff is wild. They talk about drugs today. Everything is natural. It comes, it's.
Mhm.
So I thought, okay, maybe did these medicine men make this stuff, give it to the men to make them fight more fiercely, so they would have no fear, or that kind of thing. Is that what this is? It's like the dog men, the warriors, the dog soldiers, the dog warriors, and when they go to fight, they're men, but they're dressed in like the wolf skin. You'd only see their whole face is covered in the wolf mask, and they would teeter themselves down, and the only way they could release themselves is either they die or they win, because they will not give up. That's just who they are. So I'm thinking, how you are. You try to think about things. How do you rationalize it? And I thought, was that it? And then until I saw that, I still had that doubt in my mind up until when I saw that. And then last I was camping. I will go back, I'll hike back in, spend the night. I go by myself. And I had actually did that and spent the night, and I was leaving, and I have the camera where I can turn it around. I just put it on my pack or whatever. And that one, I don't think I sent it to you. I don't know if I did or not. But anyway, on the cliff above me, I looked at my pictures later, and that is not a watcher. That is a dogman. You can clearly see that is not. And it was standing on the cliff above me and had been there. And I'd spent the night there, and just myself. And it was sitting there watching me. And I didn't know it was there. I didn't see it. I didn't smell it. Where I sensed the watchers, I did not. I did not. So that was very concerning. I'll honestly tell you that set me back a little bit. Um, so I think things is changing. More things are coming out. People are seeing more things. I think it's because the world is changing.
Mm-hmm.
The forests are going down. They're home. They're not hidden like they were before. And people are building houses out in, so yeah, there's more interaction.
Mm-hmm.
So
I was wondering, where you live at now, are the watchers around all the time, or do they go away, like migrate, or they just
no,
stay there?
they stay
They're
here.
there.
We have cave systems that they live, they live in.
Mhm.
They're out in they come out in the snow. They come out in the winter. They still, of course, we have plenty of game. There's plenty of deer. There's all kind
Yeah.
of, so they have plenty of food. And but they eat the plant life too. It's not just not meat. People, I think people think they just kill animals, but they don't. There's the mushrooms. That one tree break that I have. Um, I went past there every day, and then I had seen a juvenile. Actually, I was going out. It's like 7 o'clock in the morning, and because I transport some of my family, taking the doctor's appointments, whatever. And when I go out, I got to go up. The road is basically driving through the woods. And I had went up through there, and I went up. You go up the bank and then down. And as I went up, there was a doe, and there's like a 10-foot bank here. She dove. She didn't come down that bank. She like dove out into the center of the road, splatters out, all four legs, is like terrified, and she's like making this noise, and she's looking backwards. So finally, she scurries around and she gets her feet under, and she ran off into the woods. It's like, wow, it must be coyotes chasing her. And I went down, not even 50, and then the fawn comes off the bank in the same way. It's her baby. And I look up because I come to a complete stop. I roll my window down. I look up, and there in the tree, on the bank, which there's been a lot of trees taken down, is probably 6, 7 foot. He's a juvenile, and it must have been chasing because he's scurried to a stop there, and he's mad, like a teenager having a temper tantrum, grunting
Mhm.
and stopping. And he has this log, it's like this log, and he's got it up like this. It's like this long. And I'm thinking, he's going to throw it through my windshield because he goes like, "Argh!" And then he just, and he threw it through the side. And I'm like, and he stomps back up through the woods.
That would have
And
freaked me out.
oh, believe me, that was because all I could think about was it's going to come through the windshield on me.
That's what I would have been thinking. And then at the
Yeah.
very beginning, when you were talking about the first time you saw one and your dad, you know, your mic was cutting out or your sound was. But what did your dad say to you?
He said, don't worry about it. He's only watching. You leave him alone. He'll leave you alone. Just, stay calm. Everything will be okay. And, that was the day that he introduced me to them. I know that was his way of doing it because I was such a wild child. I was, and he couldn't control me to keep me out of the woods. Dad would go to work, or whatever. My grandma basically raised me. And Honestly, I was a terrible child. I would get out of bed every morning. I had this really long hair in my underpants now, because I'm 6. Out the back door, I have to go out the back door, and we had these big cisterns that covered the back porch, and the big cisterns off the side, and then to the barn. Down the path, and you hit the barn. That was me. I'm running, hair flying, my grandma after me. Grab that. I have no bridle, no saddle. I just grab my pony and I'm gone. And I'd come back and my hair's full of cuckleburrs and sticks and I get a switching. I get a switching because she's like, eventually you got to come home. So that was Dad's way. I was that wild child that I've always the woods are my home. And to this day, that is my escape when everything in the world is going wrong. And I just got to, have calm and peace and quiet. I'll go to the woods. And so I'm still that person.
I do that. I have to reset. I have to go to the woods.
Yep.
And honestly, I don't know if you heard me talking on Monsters Unleashed about something throwing a rock at me in the woods, but I couldn't see it.
Yeah.
But I could hear it run up on me. And
Yep.
I have a couple questions here.
Yeah.
First of all, the woods went quiet. So, and my hair stood up.
Yep.
So I thought, oh, might be that bear that's running around that's been on the news, So I was cautious and I had a firearm with me.
Mm-hmm.
And then, here comes that rock and lands in front of me about 20 or 30 feet, right on the trail. And I could hear it coming, but I think it stopped right in front of me and was going back and forth, pacing, and I just couldn't see it. Is that possible? Is that their hair?
Absolutely.
What is that?
Absolutely. That's what I said. They have that ability. It's not that they're not there. People say, oh, it's not that. They are there. I call it like the chameleon effect, like the lizards where they can simply hide in the forage or whatever. They just become part of it. Or the green snake in the grass. You've seen a green snake you can't see it. You walk on top of it. That snake can hide in there and you don't know it's there. They have that ability. But they have
the shimmer thing.
They shimmer and you'll kind of see when they first do it, it's like almost like a sound wave. I don't know if you could see a sound wave.
Is it like the predator?
Not exactly, but somewhat. It's like and you will hear that hum. Have you heard the hum? Like it would be like a high pitch electrical, like you hit a really high powered electric wire and you get that.
I did hear that.
So, and that's your other thing is you hear that and they're there. You sense, to me, I can feel them in mine because they're connected to me. So if I'm agitated, they will be agitated. If I'm happy, they're happy. If they're agitated, I feel them. So I know to be more cautious in that time frame.
It's funny you say that. I never mentioned the sound to anybody till just now. Yeah. I heard that. It's kind of like how you get I don't know if they're downloads or what. You know how your ear rings?
Yep.
It was kind of like that.
Yeah.
And the woods got quiet. Do they get quiet around you? Like the woods go quiet too?
Oh yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
Everything will it's like they sense them. They know they're there. So everything just goes silent. The squirrels will quit barking and chirping and, the birds, all that.
Even the locusts shut up.
Yeah, absolutely.
It was weird.
Yep. It's, to me, in the beginning, it was terrifying. I'm not going to say it was terrifying when I was, in the beginning. And all of this, and then because we have part of our culture is in the 12th year, it depends on your heritage and your lineage or whatever, but that's part of mine. in the 12th year, you're taken, there's a ceremonial site and where you start your training, and you live there. It's basically a cave. And of course, there's grown-ups there that guide you and teach you. And it's very hard controlling the emotion things, the fear, your anger, the whole thing. It's people ask you, it's like, how do you do that? And it's like, it's it's not done overnight, I'll tell you that much. And it's hard, and you get mad, and you cry, and you're sad, and it's all in that. But for you to interact with them, if you're going to, for this part of our life, it's a necessity. And I can tell, I can tell you, none of my children are interested. They don't. I have one daughter. I have one biological daughter and one adopted daughter. And no, I have one granddaughter that showed some interest, but she got scared. It was just too much for her. She couldn't handle it. It's like, no, I don't. I can't do this. I said, Mama, I don't know how you do this. I can't do this. It's too much. And so
I don't know. They threw a rock at me. Why? Because I was in their space, or
sometimes it's just you might have been getting a little too close. There might have been a young one there. Of course, the young ones will sometimes. I get acorns thrown at me and small pebbles. Never had. I got hit with a flying cooler, but that was, like I said, that wasn't. I don't blame them. It was simply. Well, my group was here, and they had put off some really loud calls, and he'd asked me to walk out and see if I could hear him because they were on the other side of the valley. And at that time, there was a lot of stuff going on because they were logging their home site, and they were being displaced, so they were very angry anyway. And I walked up into the dark, and I had where my greenhouse is, I had like my chiller and stuff, but I had one of those red igloo coolers, just a small red one with a white top. And I would set it back with ice and pop or water while I was working. And I heard the crashing and the screaming coming through the trees. I actually have audio of it. And from the tree lines, he grabbed that and it threw it. It was like throwing things. It was like somebody mad, and they're just throwing, not throwing at me, but throwing. And I walked up there. I'd come in from work. I had on a skirt. I did change my shoes. I had tennis shoes on instead of my dress shoes. And I'm carrying the phone. I had nothing. I didn't have nothing with me. It was just odd. Normally I'll pick up a gun, but I didn't. I just thought I'll walk up here and see if I can hear this. Past my barns. And when it hit me, I had a bruise like this big. It got me in the ear on the side, and I went down. I'm down like a sack of potatoes. And I'm thinking, honestly, I'm thinking this is it, because it's mad and it's stomping at me.
Oof.
As it came out of the tree line, it's coming down. I have my watcher that is attached to me. He came this way. That's the tame one. And he's a lot smaller than the old one. And he just came, he attacked him like, he just ran into him. But it gave me enough time to get up. I got back to the barn, and I keep a 12 gauge pump shotgun in the barn because of the bobcats and the coyotes and stuff. I have chickens and ducks and turkeys.
Right.
And I reached up and I pulled it down out of the hay. And then I thought, no. Get to the house. And I've got to go all the way back down the road, cross over the bridge, because my house is by the road now, the country road. I put it down here because of squads and stuff for Mom and Dad. And I could hear them, I'm in here. I was going to kill Mike because I called him next day. I said, what happened to you? I said, I went to bed. I said, you went to bed? He said, yeah. I said, you didn't message me back. I went to bed. Thank you. I love Mike. He's sweetest today. I love him. He's like, I went to bed.
Yeah. I can't wait to talk to him Sunday when he comes on.
Yeah,
And then let's see. Oh, I wanted to know, when you give them, what do you give them? Are you giving them food, or are you just giving them
um,
things? Or
I take, like I said, I make the apple cakes. Those are special made apple cakes.
right.
I make them from scratch. And of course, if we take deer or whatever, a portion of that goes back there to them. Trinkets, they like shiny things. It doesn't have to be even strips of cloth. They like those. You know, so it's just sometimes it's candy. Tobacco is a big thing because that kind of that's more of the Shawnee um, type of thing. The tobacco is a ceremonial type thing. So you can use any kind of tobacco. People was like, oh yeah, and I was like, no. You can go. They like like the chewing tobacco. Just like you buy the package of chewing tobacco. That used to chew beech nut or whatever. It's got that little bit sweet. And
Hmm.
then he would take the long green from the barn or whatever, or the old plugs. But it doesn't have to be that. It's just kind of whatever you have. They like those little gifts, and they'll usually like when I go to that barn. This is an old abandoned tobacco barn.
Hmm.
There's a pond. I call it the hidden pond because nobody knows it's there. It's full of fish and turtles and all, and they eat out of that pond, and it's spring fed, so it's fresh. It doesn't like scum up or anything, or so. I'll put that. I have a inside that barn. I think I did send you a picture of me standing by the table. There's a big table in there, and there's a barrels, and I will put my stuff, just lay it on that table, and then they will come in and get it. I usually get a lot of footprints in the dirt. Of course, it's an old barn, so it's dusty, and so I'll get footprints in there, and then the trails coming in, their paths in or whatever. But so it's the peanut butter thing. Yeah, they like peanut butter. Berries, they like berries, so like jellies, that kind of thing. So
I was trying to. I think I got that picture. I got the one of you when you were little with the horse.
yeah.
That's adorable. That's like the cutest thing. And then, is this the table you're talking about?
Yep, that's it.
Okay.
That's in an old tobacco barn, and I I'll put stuff in there, and it's just an old abandoned barn, and it's not used, hasn't been used for many years, but I think they were we used to hang tobacco in there, so um, they like the tobacco. I think they eat it, or chew
Mhm.
it or whatever. I don't know. Dad, I don't smoke or do anything. I never did, so I don't know anything. But Dad
Oh,
did that. We did smoke.
I wanted to ask you one more thing. When you saw that dog man, can you kind of describe what it looked like when it was standing up?
The first one that I saw, of course, it was at a distance. It wasn't close. It had the head of a dog. I thought it was like a German Shepherd head to begin with. But then when it stood up, it come up off. It was on fours. It was down on the ground on like four legs. When it came up, it changed because the back legs were curved. They're like dogs, but they're curved. Um, and it's upright and it's walking the two leg walk. Steps.
Mm.
It wasn't coming down on fours. It stayed up in the air, and it was big. This is. I guess it didn't look as big in the beginning because we were so far away. But the closer we got, we could see. The closer we got, the bigger it got. And then when it walked out into, it stepped over, and then it's like, oh, holy crap! Did we see that? And it's still I'm still, um, question in my mind. And the one girl, she's like, "Did we just see a dog man?" And I'm like, I don't know what that was. I know it wasn't a watcher because they do not, sometimes you'll see them down that they walk upright, they walk on two legs. So, um, and then the one that was like when I camped and it was on the cliff above me, it's standing up on two legs and its arms are like this. This looks like it's got more arms than legs. It's not like it. And it's looking down and you
Ooh,
can see the ears. Yeah, it is quite.
those things freak me out. I don't.
Yeah, it was. All I didn't like. I say straight up, I do not like them. I just feel
Mm-mm.
evil from them. I don't feel anything good from them at all.
Everybody says that. Everybody says that.
It's they're an entirely different thing than the Watchers. Cautious with the Watchers, absolutely. Um, and if I feel, even with the Watchers, that's what Dad taught me. He's like, if you feel like they're going to be aggressive or like a little more cautious, he said, complete submission. I will go down on my hand, and I put my head. It's complete submission. If you challenge them, he's like, if you're up and you're challenging, he's like,
Mhm.
if you had to fight, that would be one thing, but if this works, you're better off to be submissive, then they will pass you by and go on. Where if you challenge them, they feel that challenge, then they're more apt to, come
Mm.
after you.
Yeah.
So, that's the way I've been taught. And but then, like I said, I don't do anything. Like when I go out, I play flute music or drum, the light drumming. And when I do my gifting and I put my food out, I have sleigh bells, like you put on your the harness of the horse or whatever. I have the original old sleigh bells that came off the harnesses from the mule harness. So I use those, and I will do that, and then I do my bells, and that's kind of like saying, "Hey, I put you something good out here." And that's how I interact. I don't do like the wolf call or the coyote calls or the
Mhm.
the loud stuff.
Um,
I
I was going to say I tried to get your audio that you sent me, um, but it won't let me download it for some reason. And I
Yeah,
was messaging Mike. Mike
that's
said you have to like email it and then download it. So that's a
yeah.
shame.
That uh, I found out also a lot of the things with like the vocals and the audio and this stuff. Um, Sometimes it's just not meant to be. I have, I have all the way back to like 1994 on old cassette tapes. And of course, you know how cassette tapes are. You got that scritchy,
Hmm.
gritchy. And I tried to transfer them. And then from my game, the thing with my game cameras is this is what's going on with them. I have game cameras because here I have my acreage. And when I bought it, it was vacant ground. So my dad gave me this big can of ginseng berries. And he said, "Here, go plant these, and you always have money in the bank." It was just a little play on words because you can. I haven't harvest. I harvest. I never take anything less than a 4 prong. And if I want to harvest at the end of the year, you can only sell it in like September and October. And if I want extra money for the winter or whatever, I can pull out thousands of dollars out of out of the woods. I don't just, there's ginseng, yellowroot, cohosh, mayapple, bloodroot, black snake root, all of this. This is all sellable uh, roots. And so I have game cameras up because basically, if I don't, I will pinch the tops off of my ginseng because people will steal it. If they can get into your property,
Hmm.
that's thousands of dollars in there. They will. So I have game cameras, and I don't allow hunting on my property. I don't allow people on the back of my property for obvious reasons. Um, so, but the thing about my cameras is over the last about the last year, they were okay until about the last year. Now I can't keep batteries. I put them up. My batteries are dead as soon as I put them up.
Hmm.
My chips are fried. Um, the last really clear video I got was there's a trail where I go up, and there's always orbs there. These big orbs that comes down that trail. Then they come off of the bank. It's like, here's the trail, and then to the side, they will come down. These big orbs, they meet there at the top of this bank, and then they turn, and then they go back up together. You see the orbs moving like that. And I had watched I watched on my game camera. There was 3 coyotes walking down that trail. Clear as a bell. They were coyotes. You can see them. They get up to my camera. The coyote turns sideways, and now it's a deer.
It's something shape-shifted?
Shape-shifted, absolutely. That's the only explanation. I have stories of shapeshifters. I have stories of, which I don't really like the Wendigo thing, and
that thing.
I don't talk about. I've been taught not to really say those words, so because it's.
I won't say them, and I wasn't even taught that. I just don't.
It's there's a cabin here, which has been reconstructed. I call it the Devil Cabin. There's an old story goes with it. It actually belonged to from the 1700s. This was a grandfather, and his wife her name was Lame Wolf. She was Shawnee, and he was a trapper who came here. And back in the Cedar Flats, they had built his cabin back there. Of course, back then you can, it's steep. And there was a snowstorm, and she had just had a baby, which is one of my forefathers. And she was home alone. He had went out to run the trap lines, and he hadn't came back yet. And the story says that she could hear what she thought, what they said was the W coming. I would say W instead of
right.
And so, being Shawnee and, from the line of the medicine women, they teach you how to protect yourself. So she had did her things to protect, so the doors, she can't get through the doors or whatever. However, she had forgotten about, of course, this is the old time fireplace, so it's open, it's going up. You got the big flue, the big chimneys. And I guess she didn't think about that access because they could shift and come through like down. The legend of the iron, I don't know if you've ever heard about the iron, and you can use the iron to like fight spirits or whatever.
Right.
And that's a whole other part of the legend. But anyway, she managed to, because that's the way it was trying to access, was through the fireplace, and she managed to fight it off. Well, that cabin, I have he's in his 80s now, but he went back there and he took, the logs are still there. So he took everything down, brought it around, reconstructed it, and rebuilt the fireplace. And he brought the stones for the, all that, put that all back together. And this would have been like late 60s. This is another cousin, and he lives in this area, and he was coming home. He was at work, and he was coming home. And it was snowing again, and there's nobody in that cabin because it's been reconstructed, it's sitting there. And so he decides he's going to go in and build a fire to get, because he's probably about 3 or 4 miles from his home, and it's just pelting down the snow in the sleet. So he decides he's going to go in, and he built a fire in the old fireplace there. And the story says, he sat there and he kind of fell asleep. And he said the devil came out of the fireplace, what I believe was not so much the devil, but maybe it was again the other thing.
Ew, those things.
But he says he grabbed, he'd taken his shoes off to dry out. He said he grabbed his boots, ran out the door, basically barefooted, and ran all the way home. He said, I sang the Lord prayer.
I would have been running too, because those things freak me out. And those crawler things, the rake, whatever that is. I don't want nothing to do with that stuff. And I want to ask you one last question before I let you go. I know I've had you on here forever, but I really have enjoyed listening to your whole life experiences with these things. I think it's so cool. But what does your watcher look like? The one that's tied to you?
My watcher is tan. He's probably around 8 foot now. He's getting a little older like me because he basically is about my age, because we connect as child. And he his coloring is different. Of course, here, everybody thinks always says it's hairy, but right here it's like leathery.
Mm-hmm.
It's like in this area, it's like a man with a beard, but right here it's leathery. He just has flat ears. The palms of his hands are smooth. He don't have like these big giant claws or anything like that. It's like more hands. The soles of the feet are smooth, of course. Of course, they have hair, that covers their body. So to me, he's not frightening at all. He is. Everybody, I say just because you think something's ugly, doesn't mean that it's bad. And to me, he's not ugly. He's just kind of part of me, and I'm part of him. If I'm sad, he'll be sad. He's very protective. Like I go out in the wood. Well, like when Mike and them comes, I guide for them, and they set up, and they usually sit in their chairs. I walk out into the darkness by myself. He doesn't like if I'm in the woods and there's other people around. Sometimes he doesn't like for people to get too close to me. I get not all people. It's kind of like he has this sense of if he doesn't feel like they're trustworthy or a good person. So I can feel his agitation, and I know to move away from that person a little farther,
cool.
just to keep. So yeah, my life is a little different, like I said, and like I don't ask anybody to. I'm not here to convince anybody. I'm not a researcher to prove anything. I know what I know, and to each their own. And that's just the way I am.
Yeah, me too. It is what it is. We know what's up. You know what I mean? So, well, I really appreciate you coming on and sharing all that. I love listening to all that.
No problem.
It's great. And I was trying to think if I had any more questions, but I don't think I do. But if I do, I'll message you for sure.
Yeah, I'm always here. Anything. That's what I told I did a show last night with the Swamp Man. I think it's what
Swamp
he calls
Dog.
himself. Anyway, it's like that's him. And I just connected with him so much. And I told him, I said, anything I can do. And him and his wife are, you can tell how when he talks about his wife that they're, he's a good
they're
guy.
good people.
So
I like Swamp and Tammy. I like them a lot. And
I've not met her, but just meeting him, I was like, hey, I think I just found another brother.
Yeah.
That's the kind of way I
Yeah, I really like them. And he's had some really weird things happen. I had him on too, but what you were saying about the Dogman, that just goes to show because he shot that thing and it didn't even bleed. So
I don't think you can kill them. Which he might have took my things and put them away. I actually have silver. I have the old muzzle loaders, and I have the silver balls for 50 calibers. And then I have two. They are like spearheads. They're pure silver. Now, pure silver. There's two of them that I can put into if I want to use it as a spear or knife or whatever. Those were handed down. So those are handed down for a reason. Do I think I can shoot them with it? And I have high powered. I have very high powered rifles, old Army rifles that has armor piercings. And honestly, I don't think even I can blow up a motor block with this one. I literally can blow up a motor block, and I am a very good shot.
I wonder if the silver bullets will work because I think Mike even got some.
Those were hand-me-downs
For a reason.
And I do, like I said, I do have them, and I have been told, if all else fails, but there's also the thing about the iron. So, but that's more spirit-wise. I think it's more of the other combination. So,
man, I loved having you on listening. It was so great. Thank you so much for coming on and sharing. your life with that.
Well, anytime, you know, I'm here all the time if you got a question, and of course I'll see you Saturday
Yeah.
nights.
We will. I'll see you Saturday,
Anytime.
but thank you so much. I loved having you on.
Absolutely. Well, thank you so much for having me. I
Okay,
appreciate
and
it.
I'll go ahead and do the outro thing here, and I'll see you in just a second, okay?
Okay, I'm going.
In the dark where the strange things flicker, Jennifer Hicks takes you in a little deeper.
Cryptids, UFO stories that chill, the truth's out there, and she's got the thrill. Welcome to creepy culture, where the unknown comes alive.